under the merciless sun of New Mexico. Jonas Hale rode with the steady patience of a man used to silence. Dust lifted with every step of his dun mare, his eyes scanning the cracked earth for the lost steer's trail. He didn't mind the heat or the solitude. He liked it. Out here, things made sense. But then something shifted. A sound, faint and fragile, like breath caught between worlds. He froze in the saddle. It came again, barely a whimper, like wind trying to remember how to speak. Jonas dismounted, heart thudding as he tied the reins to a branch and moved the scrub and rock. The clearing opened before him like a wound. And there, beneath the oldest cottonwood, hung a girl. Her arms were strung above her, wrists raw and bleeding from rough rope. Her head lolled forward, long black hair tangled with sweat and blood. She wasn't dead. He could see the rise and fall of her chest, shallow but stubborn. Above her, a crude sign nailed to the tree read, "White man don't forgive." Jonas stepped back, while rising. The words weren't just a warning. They were a curse. He glanced around. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. The desert held its breath with him. He turned back to the girl, pulled out his knife. His hands trembled. "I ain't them," he whispered, the blade biting into the rope. "I ain't that." With one firm cut, she collapsed forward. He caught her just in time. Her body burned with fever, too light in his arms, like something not fully alive yet refusing to die. Her eyes fluttered open, dark, wild, frightened. "You're safe," he murmured, easing her to ground. "At least for now." He pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her shoulders. She didn't speak, but when he reached for his canteen and brushed water to her lips, her hand, weak, trembling, clutched his sleeve. "You got a name?" he asked softly. She blinked. "Nothing." "Well, then," his voice was low, hesitant, "we'll find one for you." He lifted her again, cradled her like a wounded thing he didn't know how to fix but couldn't leave behind. "You're with me now." His ranch was modest, just a cabin and a barn clinging to the edge of the desert. As the sun dipped low, Jonas carried the girl inside, laid her gently on the cot, and wet a cloth to clean the blood from her face. "I ain't gonna hurt you," he said. "Just cleaning you up." He worked in silence, careful and reverent, washing her feet, her bruised arms, her cracked lips. She didn't flinch. Not anymore. But her eyes, dark, unreadable, followed every move. "You remind me of a river I once knew," he said, voice barely above the wind. "Dry most of the year. But when it ran deep." He paused, looked at her. "I'll call you Kaya, just for now." She didn't answer, but she blinked slowly, and that was enough. That night, Jonas took his bedroll outside the barn. It wasn't right, being too close to her, not with her still caught in whatever nightmare she'd survived. She needed space. She needed time. He lay under the stars, rifle beside him, thinking not of the girl, but of the sign, of what it meant, of who might have put her there, and why. 3 days passed. Kaya never spoke, but her silence began to feel different. Not empty, watchful. She ate slowly, moved cautiously. He caught her watching him from the window when she thought he wouldn't see. At night, he slept outside, but always with one ear open. Then one morning he saw it, a boot print in the dirt, fresh, military. Inside, Kaya sat by the window. She didn't look at him when he entered, but her body tensed. "You see anyone?" Nothing, just her grip tightening on the blanket. That afternoon, a rider came, blue and gold uniform, U.S. Cavalry. The man's jaw was rough with stubble, but his eyes were sharp. "You Jonas Hale?" "Depends who's a skin." "Lieutenant Pierce. We're tracking a fugitive. Apache girl. Dangerous." He handed Jonas a notice. Jonas unfolded it slowly, knowing what he'd find. A crude sketch. Long hair. Sharp eyes. Kaya. Seen her? Jonas looked up, face like stone. "Can't say I have." "Small. Might be hurt. Might be hiding." Jonas handed the paper back. "Ain't seen nothing but jackrabbits and a stubborn mule." Lieutenant Pierce stared a moment longer, then nodded and rode off. Jonas watched until the dust disappeared. Inside, Kaya stood just beyond the curtain. She had heard every word. "They showed me your face," he said quiet. "Said you were wanted. I told them no." She didn't respond. Didn't have to. "I don't know what you did, Kaya," he said. "And maybe you'll tell me one day. But out here, a man chooses what he stands for. I chose you." That night, the silence between them shifted. No longer a barrier, but a bridge. The next day, Kaya stepped outside. It was the first time. Jonas watched her from the porch, knife forgotten in his hands. She moved slow, barefoot, blanket trailing from her shoulders like a shadow. She walked toward the barn, where the earth was bare and soft. There, she knelt, drew in the dirt with a stick. Careful, deliberate. Jonas stood slowly and approached, but didn't speak. In the dust, she had drawn a bird, wings stretched, surrounded by flame. "What's that?" he asked, voice gentle. Her voice cracked when she answered. "Bird in fire. My father's mark. Always flying. Always burning." She paused. Soldiers came. Said we had to leave. Far place. No food. No water. We refused. They burned our tents. Killed my brothers. My mother, they left her inside. Jonas's jaw clenched. Rage tightened in his chest like a rope. They found me. Called me thief. Beat me. Hung me. Said it was justice. She looked up at him, eyes sharp with unshed fire. "I didn't steal. I didn't kill. I did nothing wrong." He didn't speak. Just reached down, pressed his hand into the dirt beside her drawing. It wasn't touch. It was truth. She stared at him. Her breath caught. Then slowly, softly, she said, "You can call me Kaya." He nodded. "All right then." That night, she came to him, not with words, but with silence that spoke volumes. She sat across from him at the small table, her voice calm. "You want the truth?" He nodded. "My father was a miner chief," she said. "Our people lived quietly. Traded. Prayed. A white woman died near our land, killed by her husband, they say. But we were blamed. They came for justice with torches. With guns." She looked down. "They burned everything. Hung my father from our council pole. Said I was next." Jonas's voice was rough. "Why'd they hang you alive?" "As bait," she whispered. "For the rest of us. For anyone who still believed we had a right to breathe." She looked at him. "Why did you cut me down?" Jonas's voice dropped. "Because once I didn't save someone." She frowned. "My sister," he said. "Last spring, raiders came. Apache, they said. I was hunting. Came back to Ash. She hid in the barn. I heard her crying, but I waited. I was scared. She died before I had the guts to move." The silence was thick. Heavy. "You saved me," Kaya whispered. "Because you couldn't save her." He nodded. "If I'd been white," she asked, "would you still have pulled a knife?" Jonas stood, walked around the table. He looked down at her and gently cupped her chin. "I don't love skin," he said. "I love what breathes under it." Her breath caught. She reached for his hand, pressed it to her cheek. Then slowly, like sunlight climbing over a ridge, they kissed. It was soft, hesitant, real. The wind howled that night, but inside, the walls held steady. They shared soup, shared silence, and something else, something wordless and growing. 3 days later, men came, locals, armed, angry. "You harboring an Apache girl?" One asked, badge crooked on his chest. "Reward says $50. Jonas stepped down from the porch, calm but solid. "You got a warrant?" "This ain't court, Hale." The others shifted in their saddles, rifles twitching. Jonas narrowed his eyes. "You're right. It ain't. What we protect says more about us than what we fight." Dust hung thick in the still air. 3 men stood at the edge of Jonas Hale's land, hands near their rifles, eyes sharper than truth. Jonas kept his stance loose, one hand resting near his belt, his voice steady as weathered stone. "You got a warrant?" The man with the tin badge, Joe Prescott, a self-appointed deputy more outlaw than lawman, spat in the dirt. "You think this is court, Hale?" There's a wanted Apache girl out here. $50 says she's in your house. Jonas's jaw tensed. A lot of things worth more than $50. My soul's one of them. The other two men shifted uneasily. They weren't used to being told no, especially not out here, where justice came with a bullet, and God turned his face away. Inside, Kaya stood near the window, barefoot and breathless. She had heard every word. Her fingers curled tight around the edge of the table, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Jonas didn't flinch. You step onto my land without cause, Joe. I'll take it as threat. Prescott's mouth curled. You willing to die for a savage? I'm willing to die for what's right. A long pause. The desert held its breath. Then a voice rang out, soft but steady. She's not hiding. The door creaked open. Kaya stepped onto the porch. Jonas turned sharply. Kaya. But she had already come forward, the woven blanket still draped over her shoulders, her chin high. The fire in her eyes hadn't died. It had learned to wait. I'm not what they say I am, she said, her voice dry but unwavering. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't steal. But I remember every name of those who died when you called it justice. Prescott stared at her like she wasn't real. Well, I'll be damned. No, Kaya said softly. You already are. The men didn't know what to do with that. They didn't expect her to speak, let alone stand. And in that hesitation, Jonas stepped in front of her. You got what you came for, he said. Now ride on. Prescott looked between them. You protectin' her means you're one of them now, Hale. Jonas's voice dropped, low as thunder. You ever look in a mirror, Joe? You'll see who the real danger is. Prescott narrowed his eyes. We'll be back. Jonas shrugged. Bring a warrant next time. Or bring a shovel. The posse turned, grudging and grim, kicking up dust as they rode off. Jonas watched until the figures shrank into the heat shimmer, then turned to Kaya. What the hell were you thinking? He asked, not angry, just scared. She looked at him with something new behind her gaze. Trust. Fire. You didn't save me just to keep me in a box. He exhaled, rubbed a hand through his hair. No, I didn't. That evening, the wind picked up again, whispering through the eaves like an old friend returning with secrets. Inside the cabin, Kaya sat near the hearth, her knees drawn to her chest, a quiet storm in her bones. Jonas leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, just watching her, the way the firelight kissed her cheekbones, the way her breath calmed now that the danger had passed, but not vanished. She looked up at him, shadows flickering in her eyes. Do you believe me now? Jonas crossed the room and knelt before her. I believe you the moment I cut that rope. She studied his face, lines worn by sun and sorrow. Then why do I still feel like I'm falling? He didn't answer with words. He reached out, slow and open, and brushed a lock of hair from her temple. You're not falling, Kaya, he whispered. You're landing. She leaned forward then, the space between them dissolving like mist. Their foreheads touched, breath mingling, not a kiss yet, but a promise. You scare me, she whispered. I scare myself, he murmured back. Then came the kiss, deeper this time. No hesitation, no apology. Just two people who had lost too much and finally found something they didn't want to lose. In the days that followed, the air between them changed. Kaya no longer stood at the window like a ghost. She helped feed the mule, folded blankets, even smiled once when Jonas tripped over a broken stool and cursed under his breath. The house felt lived in now, shared. One night, she sat by the window while Jonas cleaned his rifle. You ever think we're both just running? He looked up. Maybe, but at least we're running the same direction. She smiled faintly, but there was pain in it. Tell me about her, she said. Jonas stiffened. Who? Your sister. He paused, then sighed. She was 16, wild, fierce. Sang loud, even when there was no music. I came home late that night. Heard her crying in the barn, but I didn't go in. I waited, thought it was safer. I was wrong. He stared at the fire, jaw tight. I buried her with my hands. Never forgave myself. Kaya moved beside him, took his hand gently. You forgave me without knowing me. Can you forgive yourself? His voice cracked. Not yet. Then let me stay until you do. But peace doesn't last in places carved by blood. For nights later, they came back. Prescott wasn't bluffing. This time, there were 6 of them. Lanterns, guns, whiskey on their breath. Jonas saw them coming from the ridge. He moved Kaya into the cellar beneath the floorboards, handed her his second rifle. If anything happens, I'm not hiding this time, she said. You're not dying either. He kissed her forehead, firm and fierce. I need you alive, Kaya. That's all I know. He stepped out into the darkness. You brought company, he called to Prescott. We brought justice, came the reply. What you brought is cowardice, dressed up in God and flags. The first shot rang out, missed him by inches. Jonas ducked behind the water trough, firing once, clean and precise. One man went down yelling. From the cellar, Kaya heard it all. Her blood screamed in her ears. She gripped the rifle, counted to 10, then rose. She kicked the trapdoor open, stepped into the firelight like vengeance born. Jonas saw her, eyes wide. Kaya, no! But she moved fast. Her shot took down a second man, the one circling toward the barn. Prescott saw her too late. You! He charged, gun raised. Jonas ran, fastened the thought in his head. He slammed into Prescott just as the bullet fired, grazing his shoulder. The 2 men went down in the dirt, fists and fury. Kaya moved toward them, rifle raised, heart pounding. But Jonas had it handled. He pinned Prescott down, eyes burning. This is your justice, he hissed. Prescott spat blood. They're animals. Jonas drew his fist back once more, then stopped. No, he said. You are. He stood, turned to Kaya. It's over. She lowered the rifle, breath shaking. By dawn, the others had fled. Prescott, bloodied and broken, rode off with a warning in his gut he'd carry the rest of his life. Jonas and Kaya stood in the pale light of morning, dirt on their hands, but something brighter in their eyes. You got a choice now, Jonas said. Ride east, try to start over, or stay here with me. She looked at him. No fear, no hesitation. You said I was landing, she whispered. Maybe this is where I build. He smiled, crooked and tired and full of hope. Then we build. That evening, they sat by the porch as the sun bled across the sky. Her hand in his heart, for the first time in years, quiet. The desert was still dangerous, the world still cruel. But in this small, battered corner of it, something soft was growing. And under that endless sky, 2 souls who had every reason to run finally chose to stay.